Renowned columnist and senior analyst Mr. Kashif Mirza wrote in his column, "To modify IWT, a battle over water sharing." The Indus Water Treaty was signed on September 19, 1960 by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Pakistan's President Muhammad Ayub Khan in Karachi after 9 years of World Bank brokered negotiations between India and Pakistan. Now, India has issued a notice to Pakistan seeking modification of the more than 6-decade-old Indus Waters Treaty, IWT, that governs the sharing of waters of 6 rivers in the Indus system between the two countries, the 62-year-old treaty that governs the sharing of waters of the Indus system, a bilateral agreement that was signed in September 1960 and survived 3 wars, the Kargil conflict, and the terror attacks in Mumbai and Kashmir. Kashif Mirza further added that India objects to 2 simultaneous dispute resolution mechanisms that have been set in motion, by raising repeated objections to the construction of hydel projects on the Indian side. The notice, sent on January 25 through the Commissioner for Indus Waters, gives Pakistan 90 days to consider entering into intergovernmental negotiations to rectify the treaty. This would mean that the treaty can be opened for renegotiations for the first time in over 6 decades. This process would also update the IWT to incorporate the lessons learned over the last 62 years. The notice has invoked Article 12(3) of the treaty, which says, "The provisions of this treaty may from time to time be modified by a duly ratified treaty concluded for that purpose between the two governments." The notice appears to be a fallout of a long-standing dispute over 2 hydroelectric power projects that India is constructing, one on the Kishanganga River, a tributary of Jhelum, and the other on the Chenab. Kashif Mirza further highlighted that Pakistan has raised objections to these projects, and dispute resolution mechanisms under the treaty have been invoked multiple times. But a full resolution has not been reached. In 2015, Pakistan asked that a neutral expert should be appointed to examine its technical objections to the Kishanganga and Radal HEPs. But the following year, Pakistan unilaterally retracted this request, and proposed that a court of arbitration should adjudicate on its objections. In August 2016, Pakistan had approached the World Bank, which had brokered the 1960 treaty, seeking the constitution of a court of arbitration under the relevant dispute redressal provisions of the treaty. Instead of responding to Pakistan's request for a court of arbitration, India moved a separate application asking for the appointment of a neutral expert, which is a lower level of dispute resolution provided in the treaty. India had argued that Pakistan's request for a court of arbitration violated the graded mechanism of dispute resolution in the treaty. In between, a significant event had happened which had consequences for the treaty. But after attack on Uri in September 2016, Indian Prime Minister had notoriously said that blood and water could not flow together, and India had with Malified suspended routine biannual talks between the Indus commissioners of the two countries. While highlighting the dispute redressal mechanism provided under Article 9 of the IWT, Kashif Mirza said it's a 3-level mechanism. So, whenever India plans to start a project under the Indus Water Treaty, it has to inform Pakistan that it is planning to build a project. Pakistan might oppose it and ask for more details. That would mean there is a question, and in case there is a question, that question has to be clarified between the two sides at the level of the Indus commissioners. While summing up, renowned columnist and senior analyst Kashif Mirza concluded that the latest Indian move asking Pakistan for renegotiation of the treaty is an indication that India appears to be willing to go as far as ending the role of the World Bank as an arbitrator and facilitator in the agreement. If India unilaterally terminates the agreement, perhaps because it no longer suits its interests, Pakistan will be forced into adopting a similar attitude, and could raise the stakes across the line of control, LoC, and elsewhere, including Afghanistan. More than anything, the development may permanently close the door for negotiations between the two countries. Pakistan has no other option but to keep the Indus Water Treaty intact. India needs to understand that the Water Treaty is Pakistan's lifeline, and that ending the decades-long status quo in place due to the agreement could stem a new wave of instability in the region. Indeed, India's threats are meant to strengthen Prime Minister Modi's electoral prospects in upcoming general elections. Changes to Indus Water Treaty, IWT, could raise hostility between India and Pakistan. Pakistan needs to aggressively counter India's attempts to amend the IWT and retaliate with a pragmatic response and a legal stance with a strong projection of its standpoint.